Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Phillips-Burdge and I'm the band director here at Dryden Elementary School. And today I'm going to demonstrate for you all the instruments that you can play in band. I'm better known around these parts as Mr. P, because Mr. P wants you to join band. Now there are 2 or 3 main categories of instruments that we offer here in our concert band. We have the woodwinds, brass, and percussion. 2 of those use air to make the sound. And in band, I like to use this Hoberman sphere to breathe in and push that air out. And both the brass and woodwind instruments use a lot of air, sometimes fast and sometimes slow. For example, if you were to blow slowly over this pop bottle, you might get a sound like this. Which is very similar to how you make a sound on a flute. So here's the flute body and here's the head joint that I just took off. And if you notice on the top there, a little hole, just like the top of that pop bottle, called the aperture. And if I blow across that aperture in a similar way to the pop bottle, it makes a similar sound. And in the beginning of learning flute, that's what we'll play. And then we'll learn how to adjust our finger on the end to make different pitches. A little Looney Tunes for you on the flute head joint. And then if I put the entire flute together, I have access to all of these keys, just like you do when you play recorder. Except the flute we hold off to the side, and as I add fingers, I change the pitches. I'm going to play a song for you now on the flute. This is Ode to Joy by Beethoven.
Number 131, theme from Symphony Number 9. 1, 2, ready, play.
So there's the flute. Maybe you like the sound of that. It has a higher pitched sound, very pretty sound, oftentimes gets the melody. You need to know that the flute is one of the most challenging instruments to start with in our band. It can be awkward to hold to the side. It can be challenging for students to make the embouchure just right to get the sound that we need to. But I have tips, and with practice and perseverance, you can do it. But you just need to know ahead of time and that you're going to need to have patience and perseverance. That means you have to stick to it. And if it gets hard sometimes, you can't just give up. So flute, patience and perseverance. Next, we're going to talk about the woodwinds that use a reed to make the sound. And maybe you've tried this before, where you take a straw and you clip off the ends a little bit to make it kind of pointed, and you squeeze those 2 ends together. And then if you're lucky, you might sound like a duck, like this. Not a real musical sound, but still fun nonetheless. And it shows the principle behind making a sound with a reed instrument. The air vibrates the reed back and forth very quickly, and that vibration makes the sound. The first reed instrument that we're going to listen to is the clarinet. It's kind of like a big recorder. This one is a black one. This is traditionally they're black with silver keys. Has a reed at the top. And if I were to blow just in the mouthpiece with that reed, you'd get this sound. And when I add that to the rest of the instrument, again, I change the length of the instrument and I change the pitches to make different sounds. Here's a song on the clarinet called Blowin' Cool. nice mellow sound to it. It can play low notes. It can play high notes. And so if you like that sound, maybe clarinet would be a good choice for you. Things to be aware of, you're going to need to make sure that your fingers are big enough to cover those holes because they are bigger than the recorder holes and they're spread out a little bit further. So that can be a challenge at first. In the beginning, we'll just start with the left hand. We won't even need the holes on the right hand for a while, so we'll just start with the left hand. Again, patience and perseverance are needed for this instrument as well. So that's the clarinet. If you like that sound, you might consider that. And then we're going to move to the saxophone. This is an alto saxophone. And it also uses a reed. But as you can see, it's a different color. That's because the alto saxophone is like a hybrid. It's made of brass and metal, but it uses a reed to make the sound. So we classify it as a woodwind instrument. Let's hear a little bit of the saxophone. So that's a little song called When the Saints Go Marching In, a New Orleans classic. And oftentimes people think, oh, the saxophone is a jazz instrument. And yes, the saxophone can play jazz music, but jazz is a style of music. It's not particular to any one instrument or another. Saxophones can also play classical music or concert band music. The clarinet and the flute, they can play jazz music. So jazz is a style, but yes, often people associate this instrument with that jazz style. So if you like that sound, it's a bit bolder of a sound, bigger of a sound than the clarinet. If you like that sound, maybe you would consider that. It is a little bit bigger and heavier, so we would try it on to make sure that it fits you correctly. But the reed and the mouthpiece are very similar between the clarinet and the saxophone. Let's move on now to that one instrument section that doesn't use their air, the percussion. Well, I mean, we hope that the percussion use their air and keep breathing, because that would be a good thing, to keep breathing. But you don't have to use the air to make the sound. They strike their instruments. And the one that we would start off with here at Dryden Elementary School are the bells. And the bells can play the same melodies that all of the other instruments play. If you've played piano, you would have a really good head start on this instrument because it's like a big piano that's made of metal that we strike with the mallets. And there's a song that we play around these parts in Dryden called "The Lion Sleeps Tonight." It's kind of like our unofficial theme song. So we would learn to read the notes, read the music, rhythms and the pitches, and you would do the same songs that the other instruments were, so you could participate when we do full band together. You could participate with those songs. And then, after doing that for a couple of months, we would move to the snare drum, which more people are familiar with, and then the bass drum, the big concert bass drum. And then there'd be auxiliary instruments, cymbals, tambourine, triangle, timpani, and we'd explore those throughout the year. That's a little bit on percussion. And now let's move on to the brass family. Again, we're using our air to make the sound, but we vibrate our lips instead of vibrating a reed. So if I make a good embouchure, I can get my lips to vibrate very quickly to make that sound. If I use a mouthpiece like this trumpet mouthpiece right here, I can change the pitch by flexing my lips, making a smaller hole, or relaxing them and making a bigger embouchure. Let's try it now with this piece of tubing, because brass instruments are basically made up of a piece of tubing. I'm going to put the trumpet mouthpiece in this tube here, which is about the same length as a trumpet would be. Let's see what it sounds like. I get some pitches to come out when I do that. But you know what? It doesn't quite sound like a trumpet yet. I'm going to put this funnel on the end to act like a bell that you see on a trumpet. Let's try it again see if it sounds any different. I think that sounds pretty good for some plastic tubing and a plastic funnel at the end. And that's really all a trumpet is, or a bugle in this case. There's no valves on this one, just a piece of tubing with a funnel at the end and a mouthpiece. Now if we go over to the actual trumpet, you can see that it's made of brass, and it has that tubing like we showed before, and it has these valves on the top. And those valves allow us to play some different pitches. I was only able to get certain pitches to come out when I used the tube with no valves. Now I will be able to get more out. I'm going to play a song for you that's from a movie that was popular back when I was a student your age. And it's called A Theme from Rocky, Gonna Fly Now. Gonna Fly Now. That's a fun one to play that when we get to be fifth graders, the trumpet players play that one on their last concert. So that's a little bit about the trumpet. It's a smaller mouthpiece, plays the higher sounds, and it has a big fanfare-like sound. Maybe you like that. We're gonna move down a little bit lower in the brass family, and let's go to the French horn. Really, I should say it's a little bit longer in the brass family. You know, that tube before that I had, that was about 4.5 feet long. If I were to stretch out this French horn, it would be 12 feet long. It would go halfway across this band room. So this is a longer instrument. It uses a similar mouthpiece to the trumpet, a little bit different shape, more funnel shape, like a cone. Same kind of buzzing. And the bell is so big, I'm going to put my hand in it to help me hold it up. And it has a nice mellow sound to it. It's not quite the same tone quality that the trumpet has projecting. The bell faces backwards, your hand is in it a little bit. A longer tube creates that very mellow sound. Here's a song from our lesson book called Go for Excellence that we're going to play for you on the French horn. It's based on the blues.
Number 84, Go for Excellence. 1, 2, ready, play.
Instruments that are a little bit different, kind of play some of the middle notes in the band and the harmonies. Maybe French horn would be a good choice for you. If you pick this instrument as a fourth grader, we wouldn't actually start on the French horn. You would start on the trumpet like I showed you before. And the reason is that it's a little bit easier as a fourth grader to start on the trumpet, to find the pitches, but they're similar enough that when you get to be in fifth grade, if you're ready, then we'll move you on to the French horn. So if you're interested in French horn, put that down, but just know that we start on the trumpet for the first year and then switch you over. Continuing down the brass family, let's go to the trombone. This long, straight instrument without any valves on it, has a bigger mouthpiece. And oftentimes students that can't make a sound on the trumpet mouthpiece because it's a little too small for their lips and their embouchure, they find more success with the trombone mouthpiece, which also fits, what I'll show you in a minute, the baritone. So we might try that if the trumpet turns out to be a little bit more challenging. If I stretch the trombone out, it would be about 9 feet, 9 of these square tiles on the band room floor. A little bit shorter than the French horn, but longer than the trumpet. One of the unique things that the trombone can do that the other instruments can't do is the glissando, which is just plain fun to do. And this is the instrument that I started on when I was in elementary school, and I've enjoyed it since. I'm going to play a little song for you now called Teddy Trombone, which features all of those glissandos or smear-like sounds. And that's a little bit of the trombone. Don't worry if you think your arm isn't long enough to reach out to 6th position or 7th position. We'll get to it when your arm's long enough. You just reach as far as you can and that'll be just fine. Just have to make sure that you can hold the instrument in the left hand and that you're strong enough to do that and that you like the sound. But who wouldn't like the sound of a trombone? Next, we're going to go to the baritone, sometimes referred to as the euphonium. And you'll notice it uses the same mouthpiece that I just used in the trombone. It's actually the same length, about 9 feet long, when we're not pressing the valves down. But you notice that the tubing is much wider. The diameter is much bigger on this one. The bell is bigger. And because of that shape, it'll make a little bit more of a mellow sound. I'm going to play our unofficial school song, Go Lions Go, to demonstrate the baritone or euphonium. Go Lions Go! So that's a little bit of the baritone euphonium. If you like that lower sound, the slightly bigger instrument, that mellow sound, maybe this one would be a good choice for you. And again, if you were set on the trumpet, but that tends to be, if that were to be too hard for you due to your embouchure, this is the one we would try. And oftentimes students have success with that. Moving on down to the bottom of the brass family, the tuba. It's kind of like a big euphonium, isn't it? It has the same shape, same valves. It's just twice as long. So if the euphonium is about 9 feet long, how long is this one? If you answered 18, you are correct. So this one would be about 18 feet long. And because of that, it makes a lower sound. So the next time somebody tells a bad joke, like your band director, and you play tuba, you just respond with, all right, I'm going to play that same song so you can get a comparison between the two instruments. I'm going to do Go Lions Go on the tuba. Go Lions Go! Now, if you're a 4th grader looking at this tuba going, there's no way I can play that, that's too big for me, you might be right. But we have a plan for that. All tuba students in 4th grade will actually play this, but we're just going to call it a tenor tuba. I know it's the baritone euphonium. We won't tell those students. You're going to play the tenor tuba. You would play out of the tuba book and you would read tuba music, so you would learn all the fingerings and how to read the notes for tuba. It would just be on a smaller looking tuba. When you get to be in 5th grade, we would switch you to the bigger tuba and the bigger mouthpiece and playing those lower sounds. And you would just jump right into it because you already know how to read the music and how to do the fingerings and the articulation. So that's the little secret about the tuba and the French horn. You wouldn't start on those actual instruments until you get to 5th grade. So that's it for the instrument demonstration. Remember, if you want to register for the Cub Band, you can do so online, and I will send you a a link to that registration form in an email. If you haven't gotten that, please let me know. Send me an email here at school and I will send you that registration link right away. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. Bye-bye.